Hey, it's Sandi Krakowski, and welcome to The Sandi Show. Today, we're going to talk about the number one topic that we have seen not only played in our video archive vault, discussed in our weekly sessions, mentioned on my social media, and also brought up on our Q&A days. That would be time management, strategies for getting more done, and productivity. So for the next couple hours, that's where I'm going. I'm a mom who built 18 corporations by homeschooling all three of my children, K through 12. I did it while battling 2 life-threatening illnesses. Some days I was on chemo, other days I was running around chasing them. And I learned a lot about time management, productivity, what it means to steward your energy, and so much more. Grab a pen and paper. Here we go. Something I want to show you is that I'm going to read down some notes I have, and then a lot of what I'm going to teach you as well is just going to come from my head and my heart, because I walk this stuff out. This is not like something I read in a course. It's not something I read in a book and I thought, oh, wow, yeah, I could make a ton of money if I teach that. It sounds pretty good. Like I do 1 or 2 of those things, but I could make a ton of money teaching people that. No, this is stuff through the nitty gritty. The stuff I'm going to teach you is how I homeschooled all 3 of my children, K through 12, while building 15 corporations. It's how I walked away from an abusive marriage, what I'm going to talk to you about. I'm going to share with you vulnerably how and why some of the mistakes I made held me back, and what I did and what I learned to move me forward. This is applicable if you have a job, you have a ministry, you are writing a book, you have a business, whatever it is. I'm not going to hold anything back. I suggest you do the exact same thing. Write this down. And again, if I say write this down to something and you didn't get it, please don't ask me to repeat, because you're going to have the recording. Okay. All right. So here we go. Every time, and when I say you or I or we, please know, it includes all of us. I have not arrived. So if you're looking for a mentor who's arrived, leave now. I have not arrived. I have arrived to some destination some of you have no clue how to get to. I have overcome some pitfalls that some of you, it'll change your entire life and that of your entire bloodline if you'll apply what I'm going to say. Every time we say we want something, write this down. Every time I say I want something, and then I deny myself from having it, whether with destructive habits or self-denial or no bound, whatever it is, every time I say I want something and then I deny myself from having it, or I commit to something, every time I commit to something and I don't follow through. So every time I say I want something and then I deny myself from having it, every time I commit to something and then I don't follow through, every time I promise I will never do this again and I do it, we are teaching ourselves to not trust our own word. There are 2 things that will destroy your business faster than any social media platform filtering you, censoring you, faster than anybody on the planet becoming the president. There is something that will destroy your business, destroy your credibility, ruin your integrity, and make you go bankrupt. Let me tell you what those 2 things are. The first one is what I just said. Doing things where you can no longer trust your own word. Because you see, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. God made it that we are predetermined to be able to succeed. Now, that doesn't mean he made us predetermined to succeed without any effort. He made us to predetermined. It is my conviction to succeed wildly. And I'm speaking from experience. If I am up for the challenge, if I will hold myself accountable, if I will be teachable, if I will stop lying to myself, if I will stop judging other people. So everywhere, the first one is that we have come face to face that we can't even trust our own word. We are doing things faster than any censorship could to destroy ourselves. The second one is every time you try to or I try to discredit someone else's success, we destroy our potential for success. I had this yahoo write me today asking me if I bought my followers and why some of my posts have a lot of comments and some of them don't. You're just a fake. You're a farce and you probably have never been. And I'm like going, what the hell did you have for breakfast? Is what I want to text him back. I wanted to DM him back. And I began thinking to myself, that attitude, that spirit, especially like, really, dude? Are you making that much money that you think that's not going to come back at you? Are you that successful? Every time you or I seek to discredit someone else. Okay, I keep hearing a word in my spirit, and I want to see whether or not this is the word that Holy Spirit wants me to say. It is. Every time we do things that cause us to distrust our own word, and every time we judge or try to discredit someone else and their success, we malign our success. Malign is the word I keep hearing. What it is that is actually something that causes us to derail. Another word for malign is we rival ourselves. We abuse ourselves. I've done this. Because of some of the trauma that happened in my life, because I was afraid of where my future might end up if I really gave in to succeeding and disciplining myself and having intention to discipline, no matter what. I think one of the reasons why I have been so strong in this pandemic, which by the year, if you haven't figured it out, has almost gone on for a year, is because I did run my business when I was on chemotherapy, because I did run my business when I was told I had a year to live, because I did keep moving forward and I learned how to get strong even when I had horrific abuse and all different kinds of things. So what I want to walk you through is an ability to not only map out what you want for your life, personally, physically, spiritually, and financially, but I need you to pay attention to where we are right now. Where are you right now? I need you to pay very careful attention, not to where your neighbor's at, not to where your spouse is at. Where are you right now? And I need you to pay attention to where you want to go. Now, this is where I'm going to go off the tracks where most people with goal setting go, because I also want you to pay attention to how what I'm going to teach you is so different, because I'm going to ask you to be honest with yourself as to why are you where you are today. The way I have transformed my life, received so many of the blessings of God in my life, is because one of the things I have had to be radically obedient to God and radically transparent with myself as to why am I here? And where is it that I want to go? And am I willing to commit to what it'll take to get there? A lot of times we look at what it's going to take for us to do, what it's going to take for us to sacrifice, what it's going to take for us to accomplish something, what it's going to take to cost. And we're not paying attention to what is it going to take in the middle of the pressure? What's it going to take when you want to quit? Because you will. You will. There's still days when I want to just forget this. I could have retired a long time ago. Why the hell am I doing this? I'm what, and how do you handle that? Because if you don't predetermine the way that you're going to deal with internal and external opposition, the things you can control, the things you can't control, if you don't address those, you will be here. Actually, you could be backwards if we don't address that now. So we've got to look at where we are, where we want to go, how what I do is so different in my trainings, and how you need to do things differently. Many of us have taken time management classes and personality classes and all different kinds of things. And we've forgotten that a lot of these are like built for companies, or they're built for people who might not have a situation that we're in. To pick up a typical time management class and then interpret it for in a pandemic is insane. Because a lot of what we are accustomed to is now different. So some of the ways that you have to hold yourself accountable, work with different people, challenges you might have, etc., are going to be different. Not to mention, I don't know about any of you. Here, this is my first question I'm going to ask. Raise your hand if it's you. How many of you wear multiple hats? I'm a mom. I'm a friend. I'm a woman in business. I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I have autoimmune conditions. Like there are a lot of different variables that and situations I might be in. I'm in business. God positioned me in business and media. I relate to and have a lot of people in the church and faith-based community who I do business with, or I know as friends and that, but God positioned me here. So some of what people might say in time management and priority management and goal setting in the church might not be applicable here. And again, if you need me to give a disclaimer about ethics, morality, integrity, or whatever, then you don't know me. I'm not giving that disclaimer because I am not going to derail on a conviction of my faith in Christ in order to accomplish something in business. I will not deny my convictions. I will not deny my integrity. I will not deny my conservative view on how I govern myself and different roles in the home, all different kinds of things. I'm not going to deny that. It just might look different. So because of those multiple hats and all these other different things that I've said, I had to create a new system because I would read all these time management courses about, chunk your time and fill in every little thing and get everything done in this, whatever. And then you just follow it. Like that gave me a massive panic attack. I would look at my calendar and be like, where do I breathe? Like I literally got to the point where my calendar, by following all these typical time management courses, made me look like I was an employee of a company. Because as an employee, you actually give up a lot of your freedom between the hours that you work. It's true. Because now you are serving the vision of someone else. And that's not a bad thing. By the way, if you hate that and you're rebellious against that and you can't stand that and you speak against that, watch yourself trying to run your own business. Because quite frankly, it didn't get easier. It was harder for me to not have to answer to anybody during these set time periods, but be responsible for it all. Some of you by the end of this course might write your old boss an apology letter. But here's the thing. I needed a new system. I needed something that would allow me to have structure, would allow for space in my day where I'm free-spirited. I have always kept a notepad and write things and put them on Post-it notes and put them in my car and set alarms on my phone and all different things like that. I'm very, very good at setting up self-imposed constraints. And some of what I'm going to share with you is going to make some of you manifest. Like some of what I'm going to share with you that I do that has worked for me and has worked for a lot of my clients. As a matter of fact, what I'm teaching you is something that I require people to walk out as best as they can if they want to be a VIP client with me, a one-on-one client. because I can't work in all areas of their life if they're not willing to apply this. Because this that I'm going to teach you, if you don't do this, this could destroy everything. One of the things that I will ask you to do that I require some of my one-on-one clients who've worked with me through the years, and I don't want you to give it to me. I don't need you to post it in the group. I just want you to do it for yourself, is over the course of 48 hours, how about if we start tomorrow morning when you get up, I want you to just have like a long notepad like this alongside with you. Doing it digitally is not going to be as effective. So grab 2 pieces of paper, and what you're going to do is you're going to, quite frankly, drive yourself crazy for 2 days, because I want you to set an alarm every 15 minutes and write down what you're doing. From the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed. You wake up, 15 minutes later, you're still laying in your bed on your phone. Oh, crap. Get out of bed. 15 minutes later, you went in the kitchen to make your coffee. And again, no questions, by the way, until it's time for questions. You get in the kitchen to go make your coffee, and a half hour later, you are cleaning out your dang refrigerator. Write it down. Made my coffee, came in the kitchen, somehow or another this happened, or I got sucked away on some political thing on Facebook, and the next thing you know, I'm cleaning my refrigerator to try to deal with the stress. Now, all of a sudden, you're an hour into your day. You could have already taken your shower, had some time with God, and had your coffee. It's not until we are aware of what we are actually doing that we can change things to be like we want them to be. Some of the things that I'm going to share with you are going to require you to change what you do in the beginning of your day, the middle of your day, and the end of your day. And it's not until you are willing to think outside of the already preconceived system, box, way of doing things that you already are, that you might actually be able to change your result. I'm going to go back and forth between here and my whiteboard. A lot of the time I'm going to be here, but I'm going to share with you something on my whiteboard that I want you to pay attention to. This is applicable for your business. This is applicable for your clients. This is applicable for your personal life. This is going to be, let me make sure this microphone's working good. Okay. This is going to be applicable for the gym. This is applicable for your finances. This is applicable for anything. Awareness is the first step to change. Okay? From awareness must now come intention. That is the second step. If you read a book and your awareness goes up and you see, oh God, this is why my life sucks here. This is why I constantly fall off whatever intention I have. This is why I'm never show back up at the gym. This is why, fill in the blank. Then all of a sudden you're like, well, this is what I know I need to change. This is an intention. Watch. This is why if I were to mentor people who are high achievers, productivity is like, I'm actually better at productivity and getting stuff done and keeping your quality of life than I even am at copywriting. This is the first step. Now watch. If we have awareness and we have intention, which I'm saying this so lovingly, okay, group hug. I have just hugged you. I'm just throwing love over you. Most of you are here. You go right back into your life hoping that your awareness of how to lose weight, how to get better sleep, how to better communicate with people, how to stop spending so much time on the phone, how to get back into the gym, how to cut your diet, whatever you read and became aware of, most of you dive right back into your life and hope your intention is strong enough. And then, guess what happens? Most of the time, the pattern repeats itself. I learned this like 20 years ago. And one of the things that happened between your awareness and your intention is that you fell right into this thing that's called the path of familiar. The path of familiar will come up in chaos. The path of familiar came up with the pandemic. The path of familiar will come up when you have a hater on your page, possibly. The path of familiar will come up anywhere that you are challenged. And most of us, myself included, until I understood this better, and I'm constantly reassessing it, will end up with a familiar pattern that is even rooted deeper. Oh, God help us. Yeah, I've lived it, and it is horrible. But you see, awareness and intention must go to the third step for anything to happen. And that is discipline. Because now you are trying to undo a pattern. And some of you will not even take this into consideration, but I'm going to tell you, you have to. You must factor in the path of familiarity, because your life didn't change with the awareness and intention. And if you believe in the spirit realm, the enemy just got pissed that you have come upon this, which is why most of the church goes into there. Now, some people believe that only discipline is going to do it, and I disagree. Because with discipline comes increased challenge, comes increased awareness, comes now a different level of intention is required. So with the discipline must come self-examination. I'm telling you, that fourth step is what most people will avoid. Because as much as we judge other people, we judge the hell out of ourselves. We do. Even if your self-love is doing pretty good, when it comes to something you know you got to change, it's almost like we're pre-programmed to find all the error. But self-examination is a healthy examination with discipline and love and accountability. And we must look at reality versus fantasy. This is one part that I'm going to talk to you, because some of you, the only reason you ain't never made six figures is because you only went here. What just happened to the light on my camera? Oh, Microsoft, stop. Did y'all see that? That was weird. Angie, you can be praying. Thank you. So, some of you, what happens is you get stuck between discipline and self-examination. Okay? Reality sets in. You know what you've got to do when the path of familiar comes in here? And you know what you've got to do? You know what? You can't just recite affirmations and make $1 million. You have to change your behavior. If you want a different outcome, you must break the pattern. And the pattern has to be changed with a new pattern, not just simple discipline and self-denial. You know, back years and years and years ago, like, you know, the 1200s and the 1400s and the 1600s and the 1800s and the Christian faith, when they would be dealing with their sin nature and struggle and all this kind of stuff, the old theologians used to call it the wiles of the flesh and the drawing of the flesh. And like, man, they just, like, if they wanted to build up self-hate, they did a good job at it. And like Martin Luther would take a belt that had pokes on the inside and try to discipline it away. I totally believe that one of the fruits of the Spirit is this self-control that comes with discipline. But you see, love, joy, and patience are also fruits of the Spirit. So that means that this self-examination's got to be wrapped in the understanding that God can help you do what you cannot do right now. It has to be, that theology has to be beautifully braided with reality and fantasy. He who chases fantasy has poverty waiting. If you chase fantasy in your relationships, you'll be miserable, impoverished. If you chase fantasy in how you want to approach the gym, you're going to be miserable, impoverished. It's not just money. So the reality comes in on how am I going to deal with this path of familiar, because it's going to show up. So quit acting like it ain't. Some of you, the reason you go down here is because path of familiar wipes you out and you think you are a schmuck. You start judging yourself. All this trauma from your childhood, all the different identities that you haven't broken yet, the pattern gets deeper. This path of familiarity demands a self-imposed constraint. One of my self-imposed constraints is when I put D&D on my phone. Because if I don't do that, I will go back to a pattern of paying attention to my phone every dang time the thing lights up. One of my self-imposed constraints is to stop trying to live on no carbs. Because what happens, especially with autoimmune conditions, my adrenals get fried. And then all I want is sugar. So I have to put a self-imposed constraint of the right carbs. I have to have a self-imposed constraint where my doctor's checking my labs every 90 days, if not every 60 days. I know the path of familiarity is going to come up. There's going to be times when I don't sleep well. There's going to be times when there's jerks in my business. There's going to be times when I'm the jerk in my life. There's going to be times when I'm on top of my game. And there's definitely going to be plenty of times when I feel like my game is just running over me with a Mack truck. So I got to put self-imposed constraints up to prevent me from trying to chase a stupid fantasy. And it changed the outcome of my reality. Does that help anybody yet? Raise your hand if you learned even one thing so far in this first half hour. Okay. I believe that there are like idolatries when people want to find success. I'm an avid reader. I read 3 to 4 books a month, and I try to listen to at least one book on audio a week. I've been doing that for many, many, many years. And there's an idolatry that exists when people try to break through to a different outcome in their life. And a lot of times they don't realize it's idolatry, because what will happen is one of the first inclinations is to pattern yourself after someone else. Has anybody else lost volume? Because I see the volume coming through just fine on my computer. No one else has lost volume. Okay. So you might want to check your computer. All right. What happens is we start patterning ourselves after someone else. That's not a bad thing. The motive's not bad. The application is wrong. What we should do is take as much information in, and the first step to change is taking an assessment of our own life and seeing what could I possibly learn here and apply to my life to get a different outcome. Okay? It is going to switch from one mic to the other. It is lower on the mic at the desk because this is my podcast mic. That mic's picking up everything in the room. And if I teach from that mic all the time, it can be problematic. Let me see if I can raise this up a little bit. So is that a little bit better? All right. So one of the things that you have to do is you have to look at where you are right now. If you have a young child, if you are battling a disease, if you used to work in an office and now you have to work at home and your children are at home and you've tried to just like, I was surprised when I heard a recent study of how many people are actually working in their bedroom on their bed with the door shut, propped up on their bed. and working. That's not going to work. We need to take maybe even just $100 and get ourselves some kind of thing that we can turn a regular table into a desk that raises our computer up. Even if you have to go work in your bedroom, go to a thrift store and get yourself a makeshift desk. Go to like a Goodwill or get online on the marketplace on Facebook and find yourself a cheap desk and chair so that you don't turn your bed into something. And if you're like, well, I don't have any room, you're going to blow your back out by sitting in your bed all day. Not to mention, it's going to affect your sleep. So we have to come up with some sort of solution to change our environment. When an expert shows you how to do things and your life doesn't work that way, or you can't do that, it can be discouraging. Maybe some of people can do some of the traditional ways of time management and goal setting, and maybe you can't. Here's the thing. There's a better way that honestly doesn't make me feel like I'm a slave to my calendar. It doesn't make me feel like I've lost control. I personally would love to see somebody create an info product and ideas about working from home in a pandemic. Different solutions with a bunch of affiliate links. We've got to come up with a new way of doing things, and we have to get out of our own, point of familiarity, because the way I look at it, if we're afraid to put ourselves in a viable position, and I know what it's like to have a really tight budget, okay? But sometimes we have to delay paying something so that we can increase our environment so that the work that we do actually fuels us to do better work so we can actually make more money. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I want to help you identify what you want your life to look like in 2021. Okay. I want you to look honestly. I want you to look realistically. I want you to ask yourself why you didn't hit your previous goals. I want you to pay attention to what you might need to do differently. And I want to honestly have you look at your goals and face the truth. What actually challenged your goal? And what is actually required of you? Okay. And again, let's set goals that serve us well. If you've never made $10,000 a month in your entire life, and you're trying to set a goal this year of making $10,000 a month, in my humble opinion, 1% of you might be able to do that. The rest of you are chasing a fantasy. The rest of you might be able to get yourself to $10,000 a month by the end of the year, or even the middle of next year, which, that's not too far away. Look at how the last year went by so fast. But some of you need to literally understand that compounding your wealth by getting yourself to making $1,000 a month, then raising that by $500 a month, then raising that by $500 a week, then raising that without increasing your hours, then raising that with lowering your stress, having an assistant. That's what we're going to talk about. But when people come to me and they're like, yep, I want you to help me make 6 figures this year. And I'm like, great. What's the most amount of money you've ever made in your life? Oh, 38,000. Okay. First thing I'm thinking of is your brain is going to prohibit you from making $100,000 if I don't deal with the way that you think. The other thing I'm thinking of is this person ready for the challenge of this new goal of making $100,000? Is this person aware of what it will require of them? Many of you believe that in order to go from making $38,000 to $100,000, you're going to have to work twice as many hours. That's not true. You actually are going to have to do something way more painful than working 80 hours a week. That means you're going to have to stop doing things during your 40 hours that you love. You're going to have to stop doing things that are distracting you. You're going to have to stop doing things and stop hanging out with people that are holding you back, that are like a noose around your neck or a heavy weight around your ankle. For some people, It's a whole lot easier to work 80 hours a week. That's why many of us, myself included, because when I first started growing my businesses, I was working between homeschooling, everything else, almost 110 hours a week because I thought that's what was required. So I glorified it. I bought into the whole gospel of hustle until you get there. I watched all kinds of people online who look like that's all they ever do is work, and thought, oh, but this will be worth it because eventually I'll be able to pull back. No, you won't. Not unless something cataclysmic happens that throws you into this reality of needing to change patterns. I want to show you how to plan your goals so that you are actually kind of creating the kind of life that you want. And there's longevity in it. By the way, planning goals is not walking by faith. It's not. Reaching your goals is not walking by faith. I put here, how can I face problems? In order to plan goals to be more than just walking by faith, you have to address how am I going to face the common problems? Because listen, if your children interrupting your work last year is what held you back, or you believe that is a big problem that's happening, then don't go chasing a fantasy thinking they're not going to stop interrupting your work. You might have to change what's going on in the home, whether or not you have help, whether or not you put up different boundaries, whether or not you call a family meeting and change the expectations. But you've got to face this problem before you're going to have a different outcome. Just walking by faith and believing all of a sudden God's going to turn your children that are wired for energy and change and life and vibrancy into just these tiny mute statues is a fantasy. It's not going to happen. We have to look as well as how can I keep myself focused, what's required of me, and what support do I need? What support do I need? Before I start mapping out goals and showing you some of the things that I do, I have a couple more points to make. And then we are going to look at how I actually map out my spiritual goals, which under spiritual is my relationship with God and also me, who I want to be, how I want to show up in my life, how I want things different, how I don't want what has happened to me to be my identity. I'm going to a new level in some of my healing recently, and I'm so fascinated by how emotional people get when they tell me their story and how much of their story is their identity. We have to get past what has happened to us in supporting our identity, because it's not our identity. It's what happened to us. And if it's still triggering you, still manifesting itself in you physiologically, still makes your heart race anytime you tell your story, anytime you talk about it, or them, the person that apparently needed to get out of your life, we need to get more healing. So for me, spiritual goals are not only my relationship with God, but my relationship with me and how I want to show up. My next is personal goals. And again, these are not in any specific order. My connection with others, how I want to show up with others, my connection with family, friends, who I influence, the world. The next one would be financial and work, which is self-explanatory. Sometimes doing something that doesn't necessarily look like it's work could actually change your financial. You might have to just implement different self-imposed constraints, or you might have to break poverty and establish new mindsets. You might have to look at a different kind of work. I used to clean houses when I was a single mom. What's something is I work out 6 days a week. Okay. So, and I'm very strong for my age and very strong as a woman and very strong as somebody who battled fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, and spondylosis and spondylitis and all these other different things. However, what's interesting to me is that I had a poverty mindset about what I could expect out of my body. And I was talking to a friend recently and I said, as strong as I am and everything else, if I started cleaning houses again, my whole body would hurt. So sometimes we have a distortion on how we're judging ourselves. Just because I'm strong and physically fit in the gym doesn't mean cleaning houses all day isn't going to hurt my body. It's a physical labor. Just because I'm strong and physically fit doesn't mean that sitting at the computer multiple hours of the day isn't going to make my hips hurt. This is why I have stations around my house where I could work. At my kitchen, I might work for an hour. I might go work in my living room for an hour. I might work here in my home office for an hour. I might go work outside for an hour. I might go work at a coffee shop for an hour. I might just drive to a local mountain and work there for an hour. These self-imposed constraints are not just about things regarding money. Sometimes the very way you are working or what you're expecting of yourself is an impoverished mindset. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the body. Yes. And goals you might have. And let me tell you what, I was the queen of excuses, and I could have had most of the population support me. I'm not going to go super deep in it, but I'm going to tell you about how I challenged my own belief, my own path of familiarity. I never abused opiates, but I was on some significantly high doses of opiates for several years and was on opiates from like 2007 to 2006 till 2017. And again, diagnosed with multiple different diseases and had excruciating pain. And yet I had to challenge myself in this point of familiarity. I had to challenge myself with the self-examination of what I was expecting of myself. I had to challenge myself of, is it really my body hurting, or have I lived in trauma for so long? It's not that it's fake, that actually my bones started to degenerate because of it. I'll share with you some of the things that I did there. We have to take note of risk factors. And where can I lessen my risk? I personally don't believe that a goal is worth chasing if there isn't some inherent risk. Otherwise, if there's no risk or no possibility of loss, that's not a goal. Just go do it. It's just a choice. I personally, because I'm wired as an entrepreneur, will have to look at the risk. Many of you, because you've heard big old experts who make billions of dollars say, and limit your risk as much as possible. I agree with limiting your risk, but I think a lot of times we, not just me or you, we get to this point where we think, oh my God, if there's any risk, don't do it, because you're supposed to limit your risk as much as possible. There's still going to be risk, but can we lessen the risk in certain areas so that taking the risk is worth it? Prophecies, by the way, are not goals. They are positions that God has given you. What you do with it is whether or not it'll come true. I believe that with my whole heart. The reason sometimes prophecies don't come true is because of our expectation. We think it's going to happen in the next year. Are you kidding me? I'm living through stuff that was prophesied 15, 20 years ago. I'm living through some stuff right now that Johnny Enlow's team prophesied over me in 2004. Okay? And in 2004, I was like, I don't see it. I have no clue how that's going to happen. Sometimes we get a prophetic word and we think that is now the goal we need to chase and we need to make it happen. Those of us who are doers. God does expect us to make some things happen. Absolutely. And he also expects radical obedience. But he also expects us to understand that that positioning comes with an accurate time of when to strike and when to hold. I'll talk about that a little bit. I'm going to talk about that quite a bit in my spiritual inner circle. Like I said before, rather than I'm going to make $20,000 a month, even though you don't even understand Facebook, you haven't taken any of my classes, you have no idea how a website works or whatever, fantasy. But to say I'm going to make $1,000 or $2,000 a month and add on that, that's an accurate goal. Learning to deal with different things. Let me show you. In order to get a different outcome, we have to look at things that we need to change or things that might change without us even having any right to say a thing about it. Like in a pandemic. Can I get an amen? We also have to look at pressure. How we handle pressure. Are there things that we actually can love ourselves enough to say, I'm not dealing with that anymore? That might mean you got to cut off a friendship. That might mean you thought a friendship was going to be super great, and now you're realizing, oh my God, all that person is trying to do is they vomit over me all the time. Every time I ask them to pray about something or whatever, they just give me their opinion. By the way, just because somebody asks you to pray doesn't mean they ask you for their opinion. Pressure. Maybe it's pressure internally. Some of that pressure we have to keep because that pressure is there by God. God put that pressure there so we might do something. And how to assess this? We've got to deal with problem solving. If you hate conflict or you hate problem solving, oh my goodness, we're going to have a heck of a time in business. Problem solving and conflict doesn't bother me. Some conflict and problem solving used to bother me. Some conflict and problem solving I'm learning to walk through with new levels of healing. This is normal. We have to work with team growth. And all of this dealing with a team who they don't like to problem solve, or people in the team who can't handle pressure, or people in the team who like professional actor and actress on the resume and they can't handle change. Oh my God, as soon as we change something, what are we going to do? In our business, we have to deal with marketing. Good Lord, if you spend any amount of time on Instagram, you got to deal with marketing in your life. Stuff's flying in front of me all the time, and I'm like, I'm not buying anything else on Instagram. And there I go, buying it because it was only 2 clicks and off it went. We've got to deal with marketing. We also have to deal with the fact some of you are going to get a schedule in place. You're going to get things in place. You're going to get a schedule in place. You're going to get a new work environment. And then your entire family might be sick for 2 weeks. So we've got to handle the change and the pressure, come up with different problem solving and walk through it. Or all of a sudden, your spouse might have a different hours they have to work, which puts different responsibility on you. And now we got to look at change and the pressure and problem solving and how to deal with all of this. A lot of times, people approach a business, a life, a goal, even the gym, like it's a recipe. And they're not thinking that highly productive people are aware of what has to happen to change their life. By the way, it will be my conviction until the day I die. People who are low achievers, don't get change done in their life, aren't productive, are people who follow a delusion thinking that people who are highly productive, highly successful, highly adaptive, transforming at a different level every year, they look at that like that person must have an easy life. And yet it has been my experience, not only in my personal life, but in working with a lot of different people and being exposed to high achievers, that it's actually the other way around. 100% of the high achievers that I've met in my lifetime have a life that's hella more hard than most people, including myself, have ever dealt with. That's actually what inspired me to transform my life, to get rid of this fantasy and delusion that it must somehow be easier for them. It must be their gifts. Now, I'm about to say something. Warning, warning, Will Robinson, brace yourself. And I'll add to that one, don't care what others think. And some of you are manifesting. Some of you are like, but what about my spouse? And what about my pastor? And what about my mother-in-law who lives with us? And what about him? What about him? What about him? What about? I love you. Making decisions for yourself doesn't mean that I am against headship in the home, if you know what I mean by that. But I do believe that if the head of your home is an overlord, he should read that the Bible says not to rule by constraint. So if you have a leader in your home or your church, because sometimes pastors act like all of a sudden they're the head of the church home and your home and the whole world. Love you, pastors. You've got to make some decisions for yourself. And the number one thing that has changed my life, that has caused me to be more equipped to make decisions for myself, is a deep, intimate walk with Jesus. It has given me a God confidence that doesn't need to be snarky. It has given me the ability to have God confidence to appeal to anybody who might be in authority and be able to come up with an agreeable way to work the thing together. Not caring what others think is not a rebellious spirit of I don't give a crap about others. No, it's actually a high level of self-governing and being able to make decisions for yourself. Okay. One of the ways that I handle the inherent risk is to take as much responsibility upon myself for what decisions I've made for myself. You can't make a decision for yourself and then blame someone else when it goes awry. You can't blame someone else when change has to come. You can't blame someone else about all the pressure. You can't blame someone else when the problem solving presents challenges. Okay? The people in our life who have big skeptical mindsets should never be given a second thought when it comes time to making decisions for the kind of life that you want to live. And by the way, a fact finder can sometimes look like they're skeptical and they're not. So those of you who are quick starts like I am, and you're married to a fact finder, or those of you who are a fact finder and you're married to a quick start, quit thinking that they're skeptical. Sometimes we have to glean from each other's strength. This requires of us a level of self-awareness that very few people want to go to. But I'm telling you, if you will go there, it's going to help you a great deal. And if you feel like you're in a situation that's abusive, men or women, because men can be married or have a boss or whatever of a woman who's very abusive. It's not just men who abuse. That is a lie from the pit of hell. Get some good therapy. Have a good sounding board. I have discovered through therapy that the opinions of my friends were a bunch of crap. I have discovered through therapy that a lot of the people who thought they knew what I was going through in my life was not only a bunch of crap, but they were trying to put their narrative on my problem, thinking that they were helping, but they weren't. And so by having therapy and releasing trauma and things, I was able to know when to listen to what somebody might say and when to not give it another thought at all. Don't pay attention when people are not even involved in the things that you do. Most of the people that you interact with on social media are not going to have to live with the decisions that you make for your children in your home. So ladies, why are we consulting with a bunch of strangers? Most of the people that you interact with on a daily basis are not going to answer to God for how you show up. I will, you will. So let's not make decisions or adjust our life or chameleonize ourselves. You know how a chameleon changes their skin to the atmosphere around them? That actually causes us to live in self-betrayal, like I talked about when we first started. Don't make decisions or adjust your life so that family members will understand, so all your friends will understand, so all your social media followers will not get mad at you. They usually never will understand, so get over it. We've got to look at our mornings, our lunch hours, our evenings, and come up with a solution. Some of you are like, but I've got to spend my time with God in the morning. I get that. People who God loves turn into humans. If I don't spend time with God, that is my first level of dissociating from the fact that these are people God loves. They just turn into humans in my mind when I haven't had time with God. And then all of a sudden, those humans like just start to fade in my mind. It's like, it's a way of not dealing with the fact that I show up a whole lot better when I've shown up with Jesus first in the beginning of the day. But some days aren't going to allow me that. Some days I have to exchange an extra hour of sleep so that I can actually show up well. Sometimes some of you actually are trying to have your morning time with God because you've heard highly successful people who've done it, and you're wired as an owl. Like you don't even mentally wake up till noon, despite the fact that you get up every day at 7 a.m. So if it was me, if I was wired as now, I'm wired as a rooster. I would change your time with God as the last thing you do. I know some very incredible, highly productive men and women who their time with God is on the night watch. Mhm. Mine's on the night watch, but it starts at about 3:34 in the morning and has most of my life. The hour between 4 and 5 a.m., I've been getting up many times with like 90% of the time without an alarm since I was in high school. How can we look at even our lunch hour or lunch break? Some of you feel like I can't get a moment to breathe because not only is my spouse in the house, my kids are in the house, and like everybody's in the house, and now the nanny's in the house. Oh God, now the cleaning lady's coming over because I took your recommendation, Sandy. And if I don't get some relief from this pressure in my house, I'm going to run away from my house. I understand and I love you. So maybe even if we're in a pandemic and you're in a lockdown situation or whatever, no one said you can't get in your car and go drive to a park and stay in your car or sit on a park bench by yourself. Find a viable solution. Maybe if you just go sit outside for an hour. I used to have something, let me show you real quick. So when I was homeschooling my children and I was working on a big project and I couldn't be interrupted, I always let them know like a set amount of time. This is one of the first steps towards my putting in self-imposed constraints. Like, from this time to this time is when I work on that. Then I take an hour and a half break and worked with my kids or whatever. And then I go back into this thing for an hour and then I've got 2 hours, whatever. But if I was working on something and they forgot, which is the nature of children and spouses and well-meaning, incredible people, I had my headphones on. So headphones on meant not available. It didn't mean I'm going to, What did you say? What? No, that's not what it meant. It meant headphones on means doors shut. Sometimes when my children were little, I couldn't really practically shut the door. As a matter of fact, sometimes when my 3 boys were little, it would have been insane for me to even leave the room. Can anybody relate? So I would be working on my computer with my headphones on while they were working on whatever they were working. And the headphones was a solution. I didn't want to put them in daycare. I was homeschooling them. I still wanted to build my business. And I knew, oh my gosh, every area of my life is bleeding into every other area of my life. And I feel like I am going insane. And headphones really helped my life a lot. Having a planner that works for me. I am not, and we were getting planners made and then all kinds of shipping in China and all kinds of like, oh my gosh, you're talking 4 or 5 months till they finally get here and all the different things with everything going on with the pandemic. So we decided not to, but I would suggest you find a planner that works for you. And who cares if it works for anybody else? It's for you. Who cares if it's the kind that your spouse uses or your most productive child uses or your best friend uses or that expert that you love on Instagram uses or whatever. It's your life. Find a planner that works for you. For the longest time, I had nothing but a to-do list and I did a lot of stuff digitally. That kind of started stressing me out because every time I would look at everything on my digital calendar, I would be like, oh my God, I just started my day. And it looked like there was 973 things on there. There really wasn't. There could have been just 17 or 9. And it felt like 900 things because there was no more space in the box. It's just the way my mind works. I'm not really ADD or ADHD type tendency. I am more like, okay, that just feels stressful. And that might be a little OCD. Entrepreneurs, by the way, I hate that it's labeled, but we tend to have these brains that need, I need y'all to listen to me. We tend to have these brains that have very quirky things, okay? And these very quirky things, we try to ignore, thinking it's the part of us that's abnormal. Actually, if you will just embrace these quirky tendencies you have as you were beautifully and fearfully and wonderfully made, the very thing that I might be OCD about is also the reason why I might stay on track It's also the reason why I had to look at, stop thinking you can do it all, Sandi, because you can't. So then I had to start changing my life to the point that my schedule was actually things that I could do. I'm going to post in the group, Angie, if you can help me remember on, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of a move. I have to have Remicade another week or two. I don't think, I'm not doing a Q&A on the 15th because I'm giving you 3 hours of things. Paula's going to come in on the 18th and I'm coming in on the 25th with an hour and a half of Q&A from this. So on Friday, we're not doing a Q&A. Here's the thing. Some of what I'm saying to you, immediately as you hear it, it might freak you out. But given another week or so, it's not going to. Some of the way that you are wired, God did that, A, so that you would learn to trust him, B, so that you would be an anomaly in the way that you do things. Entrepreneurs are often, if not always, very quirky, have different tendencies, have different whatevers. I look like I'm an extrovert. I am not. If you saw me walking around a store or whatever, I'd be the first one to smile at people or whatever. But there has to be certain times in my day where I do not utter a word to anybody. I am usually very friendly and stuff when I'm out and about, but there are some times that I go out and about and I don't want to talk to anyone. And I'm in a world of just humans and I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm an extrovert introvert. If I do not have that time period, if I do not have a solid day, usually it's on Sundays, that nobody gets to expect anything of me. This is my day to do whatever the flip I want. When I had children and people living in my home with me, what I had to do is allow myself to not use a schedule and just kind of use of what had to be done that day and give myself a lot of breathing room. I can just like, okay, we're only going to do this. I remember making sure as well, we didn't have a freaking outing every Sunday after church. Changed my life. I got so stressed out. Not only was I running my business, now we always had to have something to do on Sunday. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? On my weekends, I want to do a whole lot less than I did during the week. That's just me. Some of you, if you're not out partying or whatever, because you're being an extrovert actually re-energizes you, you feel like, you're abandoned and life is depressing. You've got to look at whatever it is that fuels and helps you and embrace it. Stop apologizing for it. There's no need to explain it to anybody. It doesn't matter. The cool thing about the internet and social media and groups like this is you start to discover people who are just like you. They don't live in your neighborhood. They don't go to your church. You would have never met them before coming here. But that's a neat thing about social media is you start to figure out everybody in this group has very quirky tendencies. So that's going to help you to embrace that. We are focusing on 2021. Write this down. We are not mapping out our entire life. We are not mapping out the next 5 years. We are in the midst of a global pandemic that is affecting every single state differently, every single country differently. We are focusing on 2021. We are focusing on the things that we can control. It's not that we are in denial or ignoring the things that we can't control, but we are putting up self-imposed constraints around the things that we can't control. We don't have to pressure ourselves to know everything about the entire year. New habits need to be established, okay? And some of that's not going to happen until you have trial and error, until you start walking it out. And I want to share this. I used to hate mapping out goals. I used to hate planning goals because I was always afraid I was going to be disappointed. I had a really hard time until I realized that my goals and my plans were insane and no one could humanly do them. And I was expecting myself to do them. I laugh now, but it wasn't funny then. And I used to hate planning and goals because it just got discouraging. So that's why I'm really passionate about writing goals that are going to fuel you to continue moving forward, small goals, big goals, medium-sized goals. B, we're going to look at them practically. And the goals that you didn't accomplish, what can we learn from them to set a different goal? I also want you to understand that creating a cocoon around you, around your greatest weakness, stop following a ton of mentors, stop taking 73 million classes, stop trying to race as fast as you can through every little thing, thinking that you're going to get ahead faster. One of the greatest things that's going to help you with your goal is tunnel vision and a cocoon. Being very selective as to who gets to speak into your life. Be extremely selective on who you listen to. Use D&D on your phone. Here's something that's going to trigger some of you. I only answer email sometimes 2-3 times a day. I remember when I first started my business and I heard these hugely successful people say that. And I was like, are you out of your mind? One of the things that I do, I answer my email 1 to 3 times a day. And about every 3 months, which I'm getting to the point right now because it's starting to stress the bejeebies out of me. Let me show you something. Do you see the inbox? 59,791. Stresses me out to even see that number. A lot of that is because I got a new phone and transported it over, and it uploaded 5 years or something like that of email. But something that I'll do if it gets really stressful, hold on to your chair, those of you who are control freaks or healing control freaks. And what I'll do is I'll delete an entire month of emails other than the stuff that I've already flagged that I need to keep. Because sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, if that really was important, the person will get back to me. If it really was important, they'll find somebody else to get back to me. I have learned the habit of not walking in fear of loss. And I've also learned the pattern that the things that are meant for me will be for me. And while I need to walk excellently and productively and do everything I'm telling you about, I can't control it all. And sometimes getting rid of the stress actually helps me to create better results. So I also keep business hours. Some of you, if you don't have business hours, you need to have them. Whether you work from 7 to 12 or 7 to 4 or 9 to 2 or 3 to 10 p.m. at night or whenever you work, even if you only work 2 hours a day, setting hours is a self-imposed constraint. A lot of what I do during the week is very little personal stuff until the weekend. Other than my workout and like cooking my meal prep and stuff like that, I don't get together with a whole lot of friends, meet a friend for a drink, spend hours and hours and hours on the phone talking about dumb stuff that doesn't matter, listening to people's opinions about stuff I don't care about or shouldn't care about. No personal stuff to the weekend. One of the things that I discovered from very successful people is that they don't try to keep up with the Joneses. And they didn't in their journey. And I can tell you wholeheartedly, that mindset of keeping up with other people and their expectations has been eradicated in me. And it's like, I actually look at people who are struggling with that sometimes. I have to be merciful, but almost like it's a foreign language. Because whenever I've attended a funeral, I think to myself, I wonder if that person who passed away would tell me they should have listened to what people thought more often. I wonder if that person who passed away is worrying right now in heaven or whatever about all the people that they didn't please. Not typically. So take a deep breath. Let me show you something that will help you reset your parasympathetic nervous system, because you might need to do this during some of the things we're going through. And that is, you breathe in for 4 and exhale for 7. Sometimes you have to do it with the noise. Sometimes I do that in the gym. That kind of breathing actually helps your parasympathetic nervous system to re-regulate. So, spiritual goals. What is it that we want in our walk with God? What is it that we'd like to learn? What is something that we have learned is very helpful to a lot of people we respect that we'd like to start doing? One of the things that I implemented in my business and in my life that radically changed it was the practice of worship. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm standing in my house like this for an hour and worshiping God. For me, it was the application of as soon as I wake up, I turn on some music to set the atmosphere that I want in my home. It also means that having, in some places, when we had an office, I actually had worship music playing very quietly 24/7 because I couldn't control the atmosphere of that building. There's all kinds of people going in and out and in and out. So I wanted angels to be entertained, as the Bible says. Angels go where there's worship. And I wanted an atmosphere of worship whenever we walked into work. Whatever this will look like for you is for you. Some of you who don't even realize that you have been given a gift of prophetic dance don't realize that you might get some of your best business ideas by applying the practice of prophetic dance. Don't know what prophetic dance is? Type in what is prophetic dance to Google and have some fun with that. For me, worship is putting the first things first. Before I teach you, before I depend on my business skill, my business experience, everything else, I want to kneel before the God of heaven and say, I need you to do what I cannot do. I need you to speak to these people in a way I cannot speak. I need all the gifts, talents, and abilities to be flowing through me. And I ask you, God, that people would have breakthrough in Jesus' name. I take time to do that. This practice has done more for me than market research, attending conferences, growing my social media platform, having a big email list, having the best friends, getting rid of every challenge in my life, blah, 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 blah. This is number one practice that helps me in my life is worship. Maybe some of you want to get more familiar about what this is. Maybe you have, you don't even understand how to apply it. Maybe you need to look up different Christian artists or non-Christian artists, depending where your background is, whatever it is. Some people don't listen to music with words. Some people, it's all instrumentals for worship. Some people like to listen to Bach or Beethoven or symphony or whatever it is. Something that gets you into alignment with heaven. A spiritual goal, for some people, looks like traditionally how much they're going to read of their Bible. I don't have a problem with that, but I have a massive problem with that if there's no talking to God. Okay? So some of you might want to even just apply a simple goal in your spiritual goals of talking to God. And some of you, one of the best ways I have found, and this might not be applicable to you, but one of the best ways I have found is to listen to a variety of different speakers on YouTube and podcasts and that, and studying how people actually talk to God and what that looks like. For me, I talk to God like I'm talking to you guys. Like I laugh with God, I yell at God, I don't be like yell disrespectfully. Well, sometimes it might be disrespectfully when I'm frustrated or being a brat, because he truly is my daddy. And I'm not like trying to make it all look so religious, like I'm all holy all the time. Are you kidding me? I am living in a human vessel. I am a spirit being inhabiting an earth of humans, including my own body. And so maybe you want to study that. Some of you might want to practice fasting is a spiritual thing. Some of you might want to start intermittent fasting, and it might actually even help your health. Some of you might want to fast 1 day a week, 1 meal a week. Fasting might be something that you want to do. Some of you might want to study more on prayer, or maybe you want to bring a friend or an accountability partner or your spouse or your children. What kind of goal do you want to set for 2021 in the spiritual category? Now, the spiritual category in my life, and I'm just sharing my experience, is going to affect not only my relationship with God, but it will affect my relationship with me. And I'll tell you why. Because I want to see me like God sees me. Because he is much more kind with me than I am with me sometimes. He has always been much more loving. I have learned how to love myself. Healing from all the trauma, yes, but I have learned how to love myself because of the way that he loves me. Getting out of a religious mindset, reading books like Stephen Furtick, or reading books from somebody who I don't necessarily feel is like religious. Getting books I've recommended several times of Sean Boltz or different people like that. You don't have to follow any of the leaders I do. I'm just saying, set a spiritual goal. Even if one of your spiritual goals is, I am going to have a half hour every day of being quiet and just writing down thoughts that come to my mind. The practice of observing and not necessarily having to understand everything has changed my life. The practice of, just because something pops in my head doesn't mean it's God, doesn't mean it's the prophetic, and doesn't mean it's my gifts. Could just be a vain imagination. Could just be a spirit pop in. Whatever. Could be something I ate. The practice of understanding that. Some of you have never studied all the spiritual gifts. Go to Amazon, go to YouTube, ask God to protect you from lies and keep your mind on the path of truth. He will. And study spiritual gifts. Figure out what your spiritual gift is. There's a great website called Chazon. Chazon. Let me show you. If you've never looked at what the heck is my spiritual gift, and Sandi's always talking about that. How can that help my business? Go here. Okay? There is a free test. You can actually buy the great book by Craig Crizel. These are great things. Do I agree with everything he says? No. Do I have to? I cut my teeth when I was first really growing with God on multiple teachers. And to this day, I believe that is why I don't want to be well balanced according to what society would think. I want to do like God says in Proverbs, that a just and equal balance is pleasing to the Lord. And so by listening to like Bill Johnson and Stephen Furtick and Hillsong and T.D. Jakes and Joyce Meyer and Chuck Pierce, you get what I'm saying, and James Goll and Graham Cook. This gave me a much broader understanding of the spiritual than I might have just gotten from a pastor or my pastor. Spiritual goals. What is it that you want to set? And you know what? I firmly believe in every one of our goals. Let's set something that the first goal is something you know you can do. Okay? I want to pray 15 minutes a day rather than I want to pray an hour a day. If you don't find yourself regularly praying right now, why are you setting a goal for an hour a day? You're probably going to fall asleep. That's what usually happens when we try something new like that. Set a goal for 15 minutes a day. Something that changed my life, rocked my world. I talk about it in the Anomaly Mindset book that I wrote. When I was a young mommy, is the practice that a mom who had 12 children taught me. And that is praying even as I'm moving about, praying in the shower, praying while I'm folding clothes over each one of my each one of the family members. I'm praying while I'm driving in my car, praying even when I'm at the gym. Some of the biggest revelations I get from heaven are when I'm in the gym, because my mind is more focused, if that makes sense. It's not just laying on the floor and praying or, being quiet and still, and then I start to pray. I like to practice personally the habit of being in prayer. There are specific times when I want to pray over specific things, and I wanted to train my spirit to be able to hear from the Father throughout the day. Set a goal that is going to not only encourage you to go deeper. If fasting one day a week just makes you kind of go, how about if you don't eat till 9 a.m.? Stop eating at 6 p.m. and go till 9 a.m. every day and see how it changes the trajectory of your life. Maybe the time that you were spending eating, you might be able to cook everything for everybody in the morning for your family and then say, you guys eat your breakfast. I love you. I'm going to take 20 minutes over here and talk to God. Everybody looks so much better when I talk to God. I look so much better when I talk to God. That's one of my practice. When I was raising my children, I had read about Susanna Wesley, and she had so many children. It should have been illegal. I'm kidding. She had a lot of children. Did she have 20? She had a lot of children. And I remember reading, and I think it was like this, 1700s, 1800s where she was. She had a practice of like putting a blanket or a veil over her head so the children knew that she was talking to God and they wouldn't interrupt. When I was really sick, I actually started this, especially when you get up at 4 a.m, 4:30, I'm thinking, oh my God, thank God they're sleeping. Yeah, right. The enemy goes into the room and goes, hey, little human, wake up. Mommy's trying to pray. Or their little brains just wake up. So I had established this practice of legitimately putting a blanket over me like a tent. I'd get my coffee and put a blanket over me. Jesus, my Bible, and me under the blanket. And sure, I would have little humans looking under the blanket to see, Mom, I need something. If I could just get 15 minutes under the blanket alone, the little humans were my children again when I was done talking to God. And so apply this in a way that is going to build you up and not feel like you're just putting another heavy weight on yourself and judging yourself. I can honestly say that I know for a fact the reason that I have been able to survive, thrive, grow, and overcome the horrific trauma that I lived in my life is because I had a radical encounter with Jesus Christ when I was 12 years old. That means I've been walking with Jesus more on this planet than I've been walking without him. And I know for a fact that that is an investment that you can never go wrong on. Now, personal goals. For me, this is going to have to do with my connection with others. So family, friends, spouse, if you have one, or significant other, if you're dating, etc. Who you influence. I actually set goals of how to be a better leader with the people that I influence in my business. Different people in the world. There's people in my neighborhood that I don't influence on the internet. You get what I'm saying? So setting these goals personally. And also, I remember when I set a personal goal that interjected with my financial goal for my very first Louis Vuitton purse. The fun thing is I don't own a Louis Vuitton or Gucci or, well, I can't say that about Louboutin shoes, but I always set a goal. I got to the point, obviously, of success in my business where I could have just gone and bought it. And when I first bought my first bag, I had been building businesses for years. I've been making millions of dollars in sales for years. But I wanted it to be a reward. The personal goals linked to a reward system is going to bear more fruit for you than, honestly, just having this list of all these things you're going to do when you finally get money. That's kind of out there, and it also doesn't build up the fact of setting a goal. I would sell a course. I had to hit a certain goal in my course. I want 150 seats or 200 seats. And then I might take 10% off the top and go get a Louis Vuitton bag. I might take my family away for a weekend or whatever. I want to encourage you that personal goals don't have to necessarily just be like that, but personal goals might be something that you want to accomplish for yourself. Walking away from my trauma, healing my body, healing and changing my cognitive distortions. These goals also interjected with what we're going to come up with a little bit later, and that is our physical goals. And I'll tell you, I'm amazed by how many entrepreneurs and Christians set all kinds of goals and don't do squat for their body. Sure, they try to eat organic and they take a couple supplements and they're thinking that this is going to help them inherit the vibrancy and everything in life. I do believe that God is our healer. But as we begin to unpack different goals, you will find out how reckless that is. And I lived it for many, many years. I drank 1.5 gallons of water since I was in my 20s, since I was bodybuilding. Even when I was like at my biggest, a size 16, I was never the kind of person who ate a ton of junk food because I knew that I simply just felt better. When I eat junk food, my brain feels like crap. I hate that feeling more than anything, is feeling like crap. I'm not talking feeling fat. That's completely different. That comes from self-image. Because you can feel fat at 90 pounds and you can feel healthy at 210 or 310 or 400, and you're working your way towards health. Mental is how we feel about our body. But if my bones are aching, my joints hurting, my back's hurting, especially in this pandemic, I talked about this, these personal goals are going to interject with this. Some of you need to relocate so you can live longer. I say that unashamedly. Moving to Arizona and dry heat changed my life. Not to mention, I'm so glad I'm in Arizona during this pandemic. Some of your personal goals and how you interact with different people are going to affect this. As well, if you will open your mind to looking at what you want with physical goals, what you want in your relationship with God, and you're not willing to live by default, you will end up with more compassion and mercy and empathy in these different things. You'll also get a hell of a lot more boldness to say no. Hopefully by the end of this course, you will look at me differently and realize Sandi's not a hard nose. It's just that she has made significant headway, and we're not taking any questions until the end. I've made significant headway in many areas of my life that were not once easy. Never easy. Never, ever, ever. I do not have a golden touch. I do not have a silver spoon. Not easy. These xylem melts are helping a great deal with the dry air here in Arizona. But one of the things that really gives me conviction, I have a whole lot of empathy for a lot of different situations, but I have very little tolerance for bullshit talking. I have very little tolerance for excuses. I have very little tolerance for people who won't take accountability. I have very little tolerance for people who won't think out of their limited mindset. I have very little tolerance when somebody knows you could actually relocate and be healthier and isn't willing to downsize. I have very little tolerance when somebody's having a big challenge in their marriage and they won't get some counseling. Sometimes you don't need couples counseling. You just both need counseling. I personally am the kind of person who doesn't believe in couples counseling unless you're getting counseling separate. You will look at your spouse a completely different way when you look at yourself, honestly, with a therapist. These things are going to cross over. How do you want to show up when you influence? If you're not taking good care of yourself, you will look at the people that you influence online as not people. You'll obsess with engagement. You'll obsess with shares. You'll obsess with likes. You'll obsess with numbers. You'll obsess over the bottom line. You will dehumanize people if you don't take care of yourself. when you're starting to try to build your business. I mean that. You may even objectify them, turn them into an object and using them at some gain for yourself. That's ugly, that's yucky, and the temptation will be there because there's so much crap on the internet, especially now. Working on yourself will always give you a better perspective on other people. Maybe you need to have better conflict resolution. Maybe there's somebody in your family that you long to be closer to. And you know the conflict is tapped out. They won't go to therapy. This is not a relationship that you know you can just dismiss. So maybe you'll start studying with the market research skills that you've learned here in the inner circle on some conflict resolution. Maybe you'll start studying why every time you get into a situation in that relationship, you have a physiological response more than an emotional response. That could be trauma on your part. These kinds of goals are going to, I'm telling you, your physical goals and your personal goals are going to either catapult forward or crush your financial goals. Pathetic, pitiful, and sad is the life of someone who has financial success, no family, no friends, nobody they love. They could care less about who they influence, and they don't give a about the world. They're 400 pounds overweight, hiding behind a computer, making a ton of money. Or the opposite. They're obsessed with being below 10% body fat constantly. Their whole life is governed by how many carbs they eat. And they sit behind their desk, they're hugely successful, and have no one. That is pathetic. I also know it is, and this might shock some of you, it is a pathetic life if you have so many people in your life, you don't really have any close friends. If you have tons of people around you all the time, but you're really not intimate with anybody. Nobody really knows the intimate part of you. If you have a ton of family all the time, friends, or you're constantly around friends, your significant other's always there, you have a ton of followers, the whole world's always asking for something of you, and you hate your life. That's not the kind of stuff I want to build. Mm-mm. This is why we have to look at physical and personal goals. What are some of the personal goals? Write them down right now. And I am going to have some time for this Q&A. We're going to get to financial and body. And let me tell you this. This was one of the first things that I knew I have a problem. I started to encounter the fact that, oh my God, I might have some trauma I need to get rid of. Because I could set goals to make everybody else's life better. I could set goals to bless my ex-husband when I was married. I could set all kinds of goals to bless and provide for all my children. I could set goals to make sure that my company grew and every single one of my team members was taken care of with bonuses. All of these are amazing goals, but they weren't amazing when I wasn't setting any goals for myself. When I wasn't setting any goals for what do I want. I'm going to tell you something right now, and it's going to be really, I'm going to be vulnerable with you. I had a season after my divorce where God kept asking me a question. And it was the hardest question of my life. He kept asking me, what do you want, Sandi? This is when I realized I had trauma. This is when I realized I had things I needed to heal. I had built multi-million-dollar companies and all different kinds of things and paid for adoptions and blah, 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 blah. And God kept saying, what do you want? And I'd be like, God, you have given me so much more than I even deserve. What do you mean? What do I want? If you never did anything at all, like, I'm okay to go to heaven. What do you mean? And he would say, what do you want? It took me almost a year to start answering this question. What do you want? What are you dreaming of? Is what he would ask me. And I'm asking you the same. What do you want to challenge yourself with? An age, race, gender, disease, financial, physical, geographical, doesn't matter. When God began to ask me this, my goals got very specific. I didn't realize that one of the reasons I couldn't set a whole lot of goals was not only because I was afraid of being disappointed because I had dealt with so much disappointment in my life, but I didn't realize how codependent I was to make sure everybody else had what they needed, was happy, was taken care of, and just be grateful. And I had an incredible life. Don't get me wrong. But when the God of the universe will not leave you alone and is asking you, what do you want? Some of you, by the way, are weeping right now because that is the hardest question of a lifetime for you too. So with that said, I keep checking this because there we go. I changed the mic even when I'm talking. I do it so often. But the love of money, Sandi, the love of money is the root of all evil. You're right. The love of money is the root of all evil. But the Bible also says money answers everything in Ecclesiastes. The Bible also says in Ecclesiastes, let me go get it. I'll read it to you. It also says, when God gives any man, and the word here is mankind, it applies to all of us. When God gives any of us wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, when God enables us to enjoy the wealth and possessions, to accept our lot and to be happy in our work. This is a gift from God. That's not preached very often. I'm going to read this to you because financial wealth, having the ability to work, to earn what I believe is my birthright, which God proportioned for me. He is a respecter of no persons. I was a single mom living on $5,000 per year. Moreover, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them and accept his lot, accept where we are and enjoy the wealth he's given. I have met more people who are struggling financially, who have a love of money, which is actually a spirit, mammon, than the multi-billionaires and multi-millionaires I've met. When not saying that some of them aren't massively corrupt. Just look around in the news. But I'm saying to judge the rich and think that that is the love of all money is a demonic lie. Because when you have more money, you can help more people. When you have more money, you can impact more people. When you have more money, you can meet more needs. When you have more money, you can do things other people can't do. When you have more money, you can open doors for people. When you have more money, you can actually have a higher quality of life because you can get medical care that is better. I hope and pray above all things that you want to prosper. And I also want to encourage you to get this book by my friend, Rabbi Lapin, Thou Shalt Prosper. The Bible says, I pray above all things that you will prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. That's why I talked about your spiritual goals. I am using the NIV. So it says, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot and be happy in his work, this is a gift from God. He seldom reflects on the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with gladness of heart. Listen to this. I've seen another evil under the sun, and it weighs heavily on mankind. When God gives a man wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing his heart desires, but God does not enable him to enjoy them, and a stranger enjoys them instead. This is meaningless, a grievous evil. A man may have 100 children and live many years, but no matter how long he lives, if he cannot enjoy his prosperity and does not receive proper burial, I say that a stillborn child is better than he is. This is not preached. It comes without meaning. It departs in darkness, and in darkness its name is shrouded. Though it never saw the sun or knew anything, it will have more rest than does that man who has wealth and possessions, and God does not enable him to enjoy them. Even if he lives 1,000 years twice, but fails to enjoy his prosperity. Do not all go to the same place. Wow. So with your financial goals, I want to encourage you to pray that God will help you to enjoy your wealth. Somebody just fell off. They got all pissed off that I'm quoting from the Bible. Whatever. You want to know my secrets? I'm not going to teach you a pagan secret. I'm not a pagan. If you're a pagan, you have free will choice. You can do that. But I'm not, and I'm sharing with you the reality. And the one thing that I have discovered is that many people do not understand that God wants you to enjoy the prosperity that he gives you. You know, you can be freaking broke making $10 million a year and extremely prosperous making $50,000 a year debt free. So my prayer as I was growing and as I continue to do is, God, help me to enjoy my work. Help me and bless me to enjoy my prosperity. Bless me, Father, to be able to enjoy and steward well my wealth. Help me, Lord, to not be given into miserly tendencies, but to be a good steward. Help me to forgive myself when I suck. Thank you, God, that you have factored in my stupidity. Help me, God, to enjoy the days of the life that you have given me. A lot of times all we do is pray for more money. If you got more money, you got more responsibility, baby. And one of them is going to come with the more money you make, you're going to have people who don't like you simply because you make more money. You just got to get over it. So what do you want to do this year? Do you want to add an extra $1,000 a month to your income? Do you want to add an extra $10,000 a month to your income because you're already making $5,000 or because you've done that before? Let's look at this. So $1,000 a month is $250 a week. A lot of times we throw numbers out there with money because we don't even think about it. One of the gifts that God has given me is to always look at money as a digit. I'm not emotionally attached to it. So when I see $1,000, I see $250 a week, and I go 250 divided by 5, which means I need to make $50 a day, 5 days a week. I don't want to work on the weekend. If I have to work on the weekend, that's fine. Sometimes I answer tickets. We actually, when the pandemic hit, so I could take our prices in this inner circle that used to be $97 and should still be, and are way worth more than that. We took our prices down to $27. So because of that, I had to let some people go. I started doing things in my company I haven't done in 15 years. I figured if other small businesses got to make sacrifices, I'll make sacrifices. We still made multiple 7 figures. Crazy thing is, my mindset of being able to adapt, look at my wealth, enjoy my life, be willing to the ins and the outs and the ups and the downs and all that came from understanding how to make $50 a day. You can go from $50 a day to $30,000 a day if you learn how to handle $50 a day. If you learn how to do this, $10,000 a month is going to be $2,500 a week. Divided by 5 days is going to be $500 a day. Setting goals. Here's the other thing. $500 a day. Let's say you have a product or a service. Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. It's product or service. Doesn't matter. I've done both. Currently, I have both products and services. And you have $47 is what you make. So if I want to make 50 bucks a day, I got to sell one a day and sell maybe 2 at the end of the month to break my goal. If I want to make $500 a day, that means I've got to do 10.6 a day. If I want to make $150 a day, 150 divided by 47, I've got to sell that many a day. If you want to be able to build financial goals, you must look at it like this. When you look at it like this, you're now breaking it down to what actually has to happen on a daily basis. If you have a day where you only get 1 customer, that means you got to get 4 on another day during the week. Setting goals that you know you can accomplish now. This is why I'm so strong with having multiple capacities in your business. Maybe you have a membership that does $47 or $27 a month. Then you also do a monthly webinar that's $147. Then you also have a high level coaching, which is $20,000 a year. You've heard me talk about the 3 ways to build a business. You get a first class. You get a lot of people to get a second class, which is the second product. And then you have a high level. Every business, doesn't matter what it is. This is the only way to grow a business. Getting a ton of first classes is your primary goal, not this. If you're trying to build a huge business on this high level, this thing can implode faster than you can say, pandemic. This is the kind of stuff for longevity. This also helps with growth, and this is cream. Setting financial goals means you've got to break it down. You can't just say, oh my God, I'm going to make $10,000 a month. When I had my kitchenware store, I used to put 3 circles on a postcard every day. My goal was to sell 3 mixers a day. No questions, please, till the end. Thank you. Lowering all hands. This simple practice helped me get to this. We got to the point of selling 25 of them a day. This simple practice, which a lot of you think you can keep in your head, is the practice that a lot of multimillionaires do. What is my daily goal? And to go from this to this is a fantasy. It's insanity. You go from this to maybe here, or maybe to 6, or maybe to 10. And then you bring yourself up. This is why a lot of what people teach online is not teaching real business. It's just teaching how to set crazy goals, how to set intentions, how to run like a racehorse. And nobody's talking about the nitty gritty. There's growth that has to happen to sell 25 a day. There's different disciplines. I got to change who I am. I got to start marketing to people that I didn't realize I'm triggered by. I have to get rid of my triggers and be able to love all people. I have to have healthy boundaries, know who not to work with. I have to have right people working around me. I can't do 25 a day all on my own. Now I got to help my personal goals. I've got to actually get in better shape because I need more energy, not because I need to work more hours, but because I need to be more focused. All of these goals hinge together. Are you starting to see that? Okay, so what we're going to do right now, it is 12:53, and you guys have been amazing. You've gone 1 hour and 53 minutes without leaving the computer, many of you. So we're going to go from now until 1:05. Go take a break. Go to the bathroom, go give your kisses or your kisses to your kids, your spouse, get some water, And we're going to continue with financial goals, go into physical goals, and then I'm going to do some Q&A. You're going to get the recording. You're going to get, not this Friday, you're going to get almost 2 weeks, and then we're going to do some Q&A, which is going to be helpful for you. I'm excited that Paula is actually going to be teaching next week, because one of the things that she'll help you with is how she had to set up goals, like in order to be able to help with changes in her life. So Paula will be on January 18th. All right, ready, set, goal. Ready, set, goal. Ready, set, go. I will see you guys at 1:05. Take a break. So something that I've learned in business and life, in my own growth, is that sometimes the way to make more money is in difficult seasons to hold the amount of money that I'm currently making. Sometimes, and I learned this from a multi-millionaire before I made $1 million. Sometimes we're not in a season of growth. Sometimes we have to learn to establish the ability of a holding pattern, of being able to hold steady certain growth. I remember when I first filed for a divorce and I was getting ready to move to Arizona, and I see Greg and Lanika Scott here. Hey! They're multimillionaires who were in one of my VIPs when we were in Kansas City. And I, at that point, was pretty sick and living on bone broth and a very restrictive diet and physically fatigued. And I don't know if I had started Remicade yet or not. And I had to put myself in a holding pattern, because I knew moving forward through the divorce, one of the things that I had to do is give myself time to heal. And that didn't mean I'm just giving myself a weekend, or all of a sudden I'm just tacking on going to a therapist after 20-something years of a marriage and horrific abuse and stuff like that was going to happen overnight. Now, some of you might not have the luxury of downsizing your income, but I want to challenge you that if your healing and longevity of life means relocating, downsizing the way that you live for a year or two so that you can spend more time working on you instead of the provision of all the needs that you have, it's worth it. I remember one of the ways that we got out of massive debt that had happened before there was any good insurance and stuff like that. Right back when I ran my kitchenware business and got very, very sick and was given a year to live, we downsized from a couple acres down to a rental that was 1,200 square feet. And maybe it was just 1,000 square feet. It was very small. You've heard me talk about the one butt kitchen. That was one of the best times of my life, because I reestablished not only my beliefs, my thinking patterns, but even my nervous system. I'm being able to go to work and my expenses were way smaller. Some people are choosing to live in an RV for the next year or two during this pandemic so they can get rid of debt. Some people are choosing to live in a small house so they can get rid of debt. Some people are selling their home in a state that has been completely locked down. And by the way, houses are still selling like crazy. And I have a feeling they're going to sell like crazy into the end of this year and beginning of next year. Rentals are going like crazy, especially here in Arizona. We got people coming from all different kinds of states, staying here for a year, getting short-term rentals. And some people are even going from Airbnb to Airbnb on a month-long rental for up to 6 months. Think creative on what you could do to get your budget down so you can lower the stress. One of the keys to making more money and keeping more money and allowing your mind to be in a mindset of making more money is being able to examine, how can I downsize our current expenses? Another thing that I'll share with you very transparently and very honestly, when I made my first million, it scared the crap out of me. because my mind was not ready to do that. I still look back this day and I still have, it's funny, I was going through my storage room as I'm getting ready to move. And I found I still have a container with all the different merchant account printouts and stuff like that of my very first kitchenware business when I made my first million. I keep them as a memory. And it's something because I'm looking through these merchant statements of $220,000, $280,000 in a month, and I'm thinking, how the heck did I do that? One of the biggest things I told you was about worship. Another thing I did is I asked God for everything I need, and I don't mean asking always for money. I asked him to give me a photographic memory. I asked him to show me how on websites human behavior is working, and I asked God to show me the closing cycle. I didn't ask him, oh God, bring me more customers. Oh God, bring me more customers. Oh God, let my content convert. Oh God, let my sales pages convert. I honestly, as God is my witness, I never prayed for that. I prayed, God, show me how to close people on a sale. Show me how to close a sale on live chat and on the phone. Show me, God, how to do 8 sales a day. Show me how to do pay-per-click. Show me how to write better titles. Show me how to use better images. Bring people in my life that I can learn from. But when I made my first million, it happened so quickly that it was overwhelming. And I gave it all away. I legitimately gave it all away. I was fearful of what people would think of me. I was fearful of what to do with it. I had a lot of persecution from my ex-husband, who was now very jealous and very angry that my little home business had made $1 million and his 6-level whatever college degree was making $40,000, which was a great income 20-something years ago. I dealt with all kinds of oppression and depression and judgments, things I never in a million years thought I would encounter. And you can read about it in my anomaly mindset. But if you think you are going to escape judgment of the rich, you are sorely mistaken. All you got to do is make 6 figures and people start judging you. There's a lot of people who walk around acting like they're wealthy, who have a ton of debt. But then what's interesting is when you start getting successful, the very same man that I thought I blocked, who sent me vomit on a DM earlier, just sent me a DM saying, I really want to figure out all the hypocrisy you're walking in so I can expose you. I'm like, dude, get an effing life. Your hobby is trying to find my hypocrisy? That's hysterical. But here's the thing. There are a lot of people who are wired by God to fact find, to do market research, to watch trends and patterns, to find where things are broken and fix them, to expose corruption, who quite frankly have not gotten rid of a poverty mindset, who quite frankly have not gotten a really religious spirit, who quite frankly have not gotten out of judgment of the rich. And so they'll usually end up like foolish man who was just DMing me, thinking he's going to benefit his life by finding my hypocrisy. Really? Chapter and verse. Tell me where it says you should find the hypocrisy in your neighbor and that will help you be better. You should find the hypocrisy in a complete stranger and it says when you compare yourselves amongst yourselves, you prove one thing. You are unwise. That man was very unwise. Ugh, I wanted to give him a piece of my mind, but I didn't. Here's the thing. When I made my first million, I came face to face with all the judgments that I had against the rich. Terror of being wealthy because of all the oppression and all the sermons and all the judgments, the impoverished mindset that has completely infected the church. A lot of Christians, I mean, not all, but a lot of Christians are more afraid of money than they are the devil, and you shouldn't be afraid of either. What's interesting is I had to make one of my financial goals addressing my poverty mindset. Thou Shalt Prosper is a book that will help you with addressing your poverty mindset. Where is it? Half my books have been packed. Where is it? The Magic of Thinking Big. Unless you should think it's about magic, it's not. The Magic of Thinking Big is another, here it is another book. The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. As a matter of fact, I think I'm gonna read it because I've got a lot of different changes that are happening in my life, and I'm going to the next level in my career and different things. The Magic of Thinking Big. He actually, if I'm not mistaken, is a pastor, and incredible book. And when you listen to the audiobook, it'll change your life. I realized that the way I was going to go to my next financial level, and this has been the case every level, every single level. I can only teach from what I've experienced. Every single level demands a different way of thinking. Not necessarily a different way of working, not necessarily a totally new strategy. It requires a different way of looking at money, people, myself, and work. So, and last but not least, the goal that really affected me big time, that many of you have actually seen me walk out since 2017, working on your physical body. I believe one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to be physically strong. That doesn't mean you have to lift weights. But from what I have learned and what I have personally experienced, you are going to have a heck of a time releasing trauma if you are not physically active. If you do not walk or jump on a mini trampoline or jump rope or do something that physically moves your body, you are going to have a really hard time. As a matter of fact, I would be willing to say, since I have studied hundreds of hours on releasing trauma, I believe that it would be near impossible to release trauma without becoming physically active. Becoming physically active and encountering my own fears head on is what transformed and continues to transform my body. Learning to love my body, learning to embrace my curves, learning to accept the loose skin, the cellulite, I've had babies, all that kind of stuff. Being able to challenge my body to do more. But I'd never challenged my body to do more without weaning off certain medications. I never challenged my body to do more without getting my bioidentical hormones checked. Getting my hormones checked from somebody who specializes in bioidentical hormones, not just a regular doctor. Being able to challenge the way my body is and my mind operates affected all of my mental goals, all of my financial goals, all of my spiritual goals. Changed my life. Completely changed my life. Just getting fit is not going to totally change your life. I meet people every day in the gym who hate themselves. I meet people in the gym every day who have incredible bodies, who have millions of followers and hate their life. I meet people every day who are hot as heck on the look. They're strong, they're gorgeous, they have finances, they look like they have a happy marriage, and they are carrying so much trauma. So don't think that just working on your body does it. But the reality of challenging and disciplining my body, I fell in love with this kind of thing when I was in my 20s. And then, unfortunately, because my upbringing, my personality, lots of trauma, I went into extreme. When I was first diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I didn't understand trauma at all. I will go to my grave believing that that disease is a manifestation of trauma. I believe actually almost all, if not every, autoimmune condition is a direct manifestation of trauma, diet, and vaccinations. It's just what I've learned. But trauma is not like some ominous thing. Like, I don't go to the gym and go, okay, I'm going to work the heck out of my shoulders because the pain I've had in my shoulders was trauma. No, actually, the trauma and how difficult it was to live with it caused degeneration in my shoulders, caused hyperdegeneration in one of my rotator cuffs that I didn't have surgery, but I had to rehab it. The tumors that I had on my back were legit. They showed up on a bone scan. Pardon me. It's dry. So don't think it's just all in your head, as in it's not real. It is real. Bone on my knees that demanded that I get stem cells, that even to this day, sometimes I have to take injections in my knees with peptides. A lot of that, if not all of it, was caused by trauma. I know it to be true. So don't judge yourself by thinking that some manifestation in your body isn't real, because it might be related to trauma. Our body actually is designed, and I'm going to say this as delicately as it can. I believe that trauma causes our body to break down, and our body is designed to break down when it carries heavy weights we were never meant to carry. And yet we have a body that regenerates, renews, restores, and I'm living proof you can reverse age without having surgery, without having a nip, a tuck, a plump, whatever. And I'm not judging anybody who's ever done it. I probably might have done it if I wasn't on Remicade. Besides lots of collagen and using some peptides that stimulate collagen to heal my gut, it actually affected my skin in that. But challenging my body is the single greatest thing that challenged my mind and every other area of my life. So setting a goal to move, to rest, and to practice gratitude have been the top 3 things that have changed my life since 2017. To move, obviously. When I first started working out, the goal was 45 minutes at the gym, 3-4 days a week. I was not allowed to do more. I knew I was an overachiever. I knew I'm going to want to push harder. I had to go into the gym knowing I have not been physically working out regularly for over 30 years. Every time I tried to work with a personal trainer, I hurt myself. Well, that's what happens when you're on opiates and prednisone. All these different challenges that I had. Before I even walked into the gym in September of 2017, I started mountain climbing after I weaned off all the medications by June. I created my own protocol. I talk about that quite a bit. The thing that makes me hesitate to releasing it is the amount of people who need it, who also have trauma. Because I can't be their answer. I'm not going to pastor that whole group. That's not my gift. I'm an apostle. I activate people. And so, yeah. But I started climbing mountains. And I started small hills. Small hills were like incredible. After I had walked with a walker and a cane, oh my God, walking a mile without dying. The first time I ever walked a mile, I thought I was going to die. I was just like, how the heck am I going to get over all this pain? Epsom salts every night and whatever. But the more I did a little bit more every day until I got up to a mile. And I remember the time that a mile got easy. And I remember the time that I used to do my mile like this. People would like toot at me, but as I would go down this one road, they would honk their horns. I'd be like, I do my mile dancing a little bit like this. Like I got light on my feet a little bit, step by step by step. I had to break out of this. By this day, I'm going to be in these clothes and I'm going to weigh this much whatever. Mind you, we're talking since 6th grade, I had a bleeding ulcer. I used to have anorexia and bulimia, all kinds of crazy eating disorders, manifestations of trauma, body dysmorphia when I went into bodybuilding. I had to throw all of that away and walk into this not knowing at all what lied ahead of me. All I wanted was more energy and my life back. I didn't know I was going to be standing here looking like this. I had no idea that I worked out this morning and did just a lot of weight, more weight than I ever in a million years thought I'd ever be doing. Sometimes I'm using little 10-pound dumbbells and other times I got 245s in the plates. To move was a huge goal. step by step by step. I didn't go to 5 days a week until I was in the gym for almost a year. Because that my body, my connective tissue and disease and all these other different things I had to work through, I also had to learn to rest. I always say that my goal is to get off Remicade. And I keep saying that I think every 6 weeks, though, I'm going to take 4 days off of my life because it's one of the best things ever. Sometimes it's not so fun because some of the side effects or whatever, but one of the best things that's ever helped my workout and my mind is every 6 weeks to just go for 4 days. It's incredible. I legitimately stay in my pajamas for 3 days. And it's amazing. Learning to rest. Sometimes when I started working out, I would get all bloated. You know what? That doesn't mean you work harder. You drink more water and take a day of rest. This is the single greatest thing that people like really struggle with who start working on their body. Just like having a treat meal. Every Friday, I have like an additional 1,500 calories with no shame. I don't even count the calories. I'm not even worried about it. Learning to rest is important as learning to move. What kind of physical goal are you going to do this year? Are you going to get your hormones checked? Are you going to eat better? Are you going to drink a gallon of water a day, whether you like it or not? Are you going to study how to put different citrus juices in so it makes it even easier to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to cut dairy out for a year? Are you going to cut, what are you going to do? Don't go, I'm cutting out dairy, I'm cutting out sugar, I'm cutting out this. Don't put yourself into like this concentration camp of a diet where you hate yourself and like you're all emaciated, but no, that's not healthy, that's dumb. What are you going to do this year that's going to make a massive difference? And you might want to stagger it. The first quarter of the month or of the year, the first 3 months, I'm drinking more water. The second quarter, I'm cutting out sugar. I'm only going to eat sugar on Fridays. That's it. On the next quarter, I'm going to only have dairy, cheese, whatever on Fridays or whatever. Set a goal for physically strengthening your body. Your goal might be to buy a great grass-fed collagen on Amazon or at your local store, and that's what you're going to do for 6 months and see what it does for your life. You don't have to like jump into bodybuilding for crying out loud. Your goal might be to challenge your false beliefs that I have no time to rest. Rest is for the weak. Rest is for people who, you can rest when you're dead. No, actually, you'll die if you don't rest. And gratitude. It's one thing to say you're grateful. It's another thing to live it. I often cry at the gym. My family at the gym tease me because I get super excited when I do a big thing. Sometimes I'm just like, whatever, do a dance around it, whatever. Other times I've got tears. Because one of the things that helps me practice gratitude is to never forget where I came from. To never forget I was a single mom. To never forget what it was like to live on $5,000 a year. To never forget what it was like to hear them say, I have a year to live. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. To never forget the last time I took an opiate. To never forget when I got pneumonia last year and had to use a cough syrup that had in it. But I was not addicted. My body could handle a child's dose. And I did and went off it. To never forget that when I got COVID, 6 days later, I was in the gym. To never forget the fact that the reason I can have the quality of medical care I have is because I have the honor and privilege of building a business online from my home. To never forget where you come from. That's going to change your life. A lot of times we set out goals and we don't change the way we think. We set out goals and we don't change the way we live. Remember what I said in the beginning. And this will be posted before the end of the day, so you'll have the whole recording. If we come into, let me show it to you again. they go? Most people go from awareness to intention. They're aware they need to change something, so they set a goal. They're aware they need to change something because they just read a book, they had a class, they see somebody's transformed their life. The awareness goes up. And then they set an intention. But they never get into discipline, self-examination, checking out the reality versus the fantasy, attacking the path of familiar, self-imposed constraints. They don't change the outcome because they go from awareness and intention straight back into their life, and it's nothing more than a pattern. Just like I've seen people who've said to me they've been through therapy, they've gotten rid of trauma, blah, 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 blah. But when they talk about what happened to them, they are extremely emotional. That's just a pattern that changes identity. As a matter of fact, I'll be bold enough to say that's not trauma that was released. That's trauma that morphed itself into a defensive female dog. I see this a lot of times because I work with more women than men, in women who've come out of abuse. And, brashness is not boldness. Obnoxiousness and your ability to raise your voice and point your finger at the devil doesn't mean that you're bold. It means that you're still hurting. It means that there's still trauma. So getting past awareness, past just intention, into discipline. Thanks so much again for listening to this podcast episode. And as you have been listening to today's masterclass, I want to invite you to become an Inner Circle member. You can get $70 off our regular price. Our new price is only $27 for a limited time. If you go to arealchange.com/inner circle. We'd love to have you there. I host 2 masterclasses every month with a couple-hour sessions. We have live Q&A, over 800 hours of recorded audio and video in our academy. And we have a track record of raising up 6- and 7-figure earners. If you just want to put some more cash into your bank account, you want to pay off your debt, or you're really looking for a great way to change your life, go to arealchange.com/inner circle. And you can get $70 off today. I look forward to seeing you in the group. And until then, have a wonderful day. And don't ever forget who you are.